You are another choice of my guest, Rashid Lombard. What was that, Rashid?
That song Yakal and Kormo by Winston Mankunku.
Okay, my guest, Rashid Lombard here. We're talking about the Cape Town Jazz Festival, International Festival, but also about Rashid and his fascinating life. And as always, Peter Tureen sponsors our program. Fine Music Radio thanks him. Peter Tureen brings you this program every week at the same time. So one of the most important things in your life, apart from your love of jazz, your passion for jazz, seems to be photography, and that's been a very major part of your life. So we established that you trained as an architectural draftsman. So how did photography come in? How did that rear its head and become so important in your life?
So that's the story of my life.
I'm waiting.
So I work as an architectural draftsman. I was in the drawing room. My manager was Mr. Barrett, Mel Barrett. Oh, my memory is good. And
Yes.
that department was basically also working on tenders, sort of more than just drawing buildings and so forth. And a lot of our tenders then was audiovisual, and that we were also responsible for the site photography. And of course, it was sort of late 70s, early 80s. There was a slump in the building industry. And I then introduced photography in terms of Mike Omerod, and he still remembers this, was at his studio in Rondebosch at the Fountain Circle, and their budget was quite high monthly. And I told Mel Barrett, brother, let us do our own photography in-house. Neil Fraser was an MD, he loved it. He's like, let's just cut that budget because I'm on salary. So they allowed me to set up a darkroom, and I done all the site photography. I had to go into a helicopter, said, "You've taken aerial pictures?" Yes, I had. Run to Cape Town Library, read up on what it takes, the shutter speed, and shoot 3 frames.
Because
Different
presumably you hadn't had proper training at that stage.
Yeah.
So you had to quickly, in a sense you were pretending you were an excellent photographer.
Yeah.
And so I had to quickly go and brush up your knowledge.
The others, I was quite confident. There was a time I trained at the Loubser Studios Eric Loubser Studios. They were in there. They had a darkroom course. So I done the darkroom course. I was still at high school, but so we set it up and we slashed budget. So I had time to do. I photographed Civic Center, Wooltrue, Tiger Bird Center, the Cape Sun from basement.
Wow.
And that's how I got into doing it full-time, industrial photography. From there, I moved to news.
Oh, you did news photography as well?
No, from after I finished.
Oh, okay.
The slump was 1980, I think the end of 1980 or early 81 in the industry. So it's first in, last in, first out kind of thing. So they had to retrench. So I was retrenched, and immediately I went into photojournalism.
But that must have been quite a time, because the 80s it was not a good decade in this country.
Yeah, it was a great time because I could work.
Well, that's
Work for the foreign media.
Oh, did you work mostly for the foreign
Only
media?
for the foreign
Oh,
media.
really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. But now am I right in saying your big thing is photographing musicians? You moved to that. How did that come about?
Well, it was a kind of a therapy for me. I covered a lot of hotspots. Namibia, for example, 15 years of my life, during Southeast Africa, into transition, into independence, Mozambique, South Africa, Angola.
Angola, I was going to say.
Yeah, and
Zimbabwe,
yeah. So music was always a kind of therapy, We'd all file our pictures, and in my room I'll have my little tape recorder, 2 speakers, and everyone would hang out there with lots of and just chill, so it helped me through, going a bit crazy.
Yeah.
But what was the question again?
I've forgotten the question.
Yeah.
Photojournalism.
But wait.
Oh, you spoke about the musicians,
Yes.
about music.
Yes.
So yes, as I was saying, it was the musicians became my friends and family. A lot of them, I spent a lot of time with them, and we spent time honing our skills on politics, because the politics of the arts then. And so, like a family, you know, I hung out with them. I was a roadie, I carried to get into venues, and that's how I could photograph them behind the scenes and so forth. But I traveled a lot, and just because of love of music, and I wanted to see certain artists, and that's how you get to meet Wayne Shorters and
yes.
you know, Stanley Clarks of the world, the Diane Reeves, and so I've got a huge portfolio, you know, spanning probably 40 years just of musicians.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of that has been published in book form, hasn't it?
Only one.
Only one? Oh, okay.
It's like a third of what I have.
Okay.
Done in 2010.
Wow. But where are these photographs now? Do you ever have an exhibition, or do you? Or I hope you're going to keep them. You mentioned an archive. You should have an exhibition.
Yeah, I've actually been a bit fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing a lot of late.
Okay.
It's now 6 years writing and writing up a concept about digitizing and archiving heritage resources, which covers my archives. Now, my archives is made up of celluloid, which is negatives, because I went into video. So I've got video of musicians and other. I've got pamphlets, flyers, T-shirts. I never wear branded T-shirts at all unless I'm paid.
Unless you paid.
I'm paid, yeah. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe later, you know.
Okay.
But they go for the young, trendy ones these days. And how do we put that into a home?
Mm-hmm.
But also have access to it. So you can't just have an image. There has to be a narrative way beyond a caption.
Mm-hmm.
And who are these people in these pictures? Go find their names and find out where they are. But the bigger picture is to create a model for other archives. And I know people are sitting with information under their beds. Their parents have passed on, and there's a whole new generation of young people, students, well, and not so young, including myself, that want to research. You know, so we're going to start writing new curricula. How do you approach it? You know,
and this is what you're doing now. This is what you're currently
there's some
involved in.
plannings like pie in the sky, but
Right.
I like eating pie, so it's going
Well,
to
exactly.
happen quite soon. I
Don't
hope.
leave them in the sky.
I'm not in a hurry because I want to do it. I want to do it state of the art kind of
Mhm,
thing.
Of course.
You know,
Because it'll be a legacy
Yeah,
of yours.
it's built to last.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the next 100 years, that structure's still got to be there.
Rashid Lombard, what's your next choice of music?
I'd like to go back to Jimmy Smith. I've got my mojo working. That was the first sounds and if I can't remember correctly, it's on a Hammond B. He plays a Hammond
Yes.
B3 organ, and I still love the sound of an organ.
The Hammond organ, remember those from the
Yeah.
60s, I think.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah. They've become quite modern now, but
Mhm.
you know, the old one with the sound box and,
That's right.
and the bass pedals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we'll hear. Is that what we're going to hear?
Yep.